Absolutely. Can we both drink?
Yeah, you want to share?
All right, is everybody ready? Right? Yeah. All right. Well, let me begin by saying that I really don't believe, if I wouldn't have issued the statement last week, that if our teachers don't get a permanent pay raise, that nobody gets one either. And if I had not issued that statement, I don't think we'd be here today. The legislature understood what I was trying to tell them, is that, hey, look, we need to find a path. Not that they haven't worked on it before. We've collectively been working on that together for the last now 3 regular sessions. And I think it's also important to go back a little bit. You know, over the last 100 years, our state has struggled to keep pace with our sister states across the South. The failure has cost us dearly. We have lost talent, population, opportunities, and it has left Louisiana trapped in a cycle of poverty and disappointment. For too long, the politicians that ran this capital sacrificed tomorrow for today, kicking a proverbial can down the road, placing short-term political convenience over the long-term well-being of our citizens. I ran for governor because I love Louisiana. And I call it home. And I believe in this state, and I believe the greatest natural resource in this state are our people. And I've seen with my own eyes what real commitment to change can do. I've traveled to some of those other southern states that have embraced change, that have embraced reform, have lifted their people out of poverty and freed family from the dependence of government. And that is what I truly want for Louisiana and our people. I believe that for the first time in a long time, a critical mass of legislators share this commitment. And together, we have worked across the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, to advance public safety, tax reform, insurance reform, legal reform, fiscal discipline, and economic opportunity. And the results speak for themselves. Today, over 124,000 new job opportunities exist in Louisiana. Those jobs are paying 30 to 40% above the average salary before. In fact, I had to move this press conference because I'm going up to Central Louisiana, where we're going to announce the biggest investment in private investment in Central Louisiana ever. And the permanent jobs that are being made there are 3 times the average salaries of that area. Taxes are lower, insurance rates are down and going to fall further. Opportunities are expanding. And for the first time in decades, the exporting of our talent has ceased. And we've put Louisiana on a course to reverse 50 years of losing our people to other states. Under the leadership of Kate Brumley and Bessie, we have made historic progress in education, strengthening parental rights, elevating teacher rights, and restoring a sense of purpose and accountability in our schools. But that progress is not enough. Not when our teachers, the very people we trust with the future of our children, are still being asked to do more with less. I want you to know this is personal for me. My mother was a teacher. She taught in the public school system. She taught in the parochial school system. My godmother's a teacher. I have aunts that are teachers. I have a sister who's a teacher. I've got friends that are teachers. And from my first day in office, both myself and this legislature have been committed to delivering a permanent pay raise for classroom teachers and support staff. And we wanted to do it without raising taxes. And I stand here today with two of, I believe, the greatest leaders that have led the chambers in these halls who share that commitment as well. Let me be clear. The money for permanent teacher pay raise did not exist in the budget under John Bell. Let me repeat that. The money for a permanent pay raise did not exist under the last governor, and it doesn't exist today. But it doesn't mean that it should stop us. There are 51,000 public school teachers and 40,000 support staff workers across Louisiana. And with the help of the legislature, they're going to receive their raise. We are going to fix what's broken, and we are going to right our fiscal education ship. And just as we did to lower insurance rates and bring down crime and expand job opportunities, we are going to tackle this problem starting with the data instead of emotion. Here are the facts. When I graduated high school, public high school, in 1988, I was one of 870,000 public school students in Louisiana. Today, we have 760,000 public school students. That is a decrease in the amount of students by over 100,000 students. Adjusted for today's dollars, okay, taking in inflationary dollars, in 1988, the state of Louisiana, when I graduated, was spending about $9,400 per student, adjusted for today's dollars, which included teacher pay. Today, we spend $16,000 per student. So the amount that we're spending per student has doubled, while the number of students in the system have gone down tremendously. And here's the most disturbing part. We're spending twice as much on fewer students, but our classroom teachers are actually making less money today than they did in 1988 when you adjusted for inflation. Think about that. More money, less students, and the only people that are suffering, the only people in the whole system that are suffering are the teachers. That's unacceptable. Now, I know that there are liberal groups out there who are going to do their best to pick apart this plan. And I'm sure that there are those in the media that are going to try to frame me and this legislature as being indifferent or uncaring about education. And I want you to know there's nothing could be further than the truth. In fact, we care so deeply about it. We've been trying to tackle this for 3 years now. And we are going to make education efficient, sustainable, and accountable. And it is my hope that once the legislature sends the budget to my desk, that we can work together in the coming weeks to fully fund the pay increases for our teachers and support staff needed this year. I believe, working with them, that we'll get it done. But we're not going to kick the can down the road anymore. I think the teachers deserve certainty. They deserve stability. They deserve respect in the form of a permanent pay raise. And this is our moment to choose the future over the past and to choose long-term reform over short-term politics. With that, I would like to bring up Senate President to go through the plan that the legislature has come up with. President.
Thank you, Governor. So I'm pleased to announce this morning that Speaker DeVillier and I are going to introduce a resolution, a Senate concurrent resolution to study and develop a new MFP formula. I think the first thing everybody needs to understand, back to the governor's point on data, is a current formula is $6.2 billion. That's with a B. That's $4 billion of state dollars, $2 billion of local dollars. 70% of that money is supposed to be in the classroom, which allows for 30% to be non-classroom instruction. Of all the sources of funding that go to public education, that total dollar amount is $13 billion. That's with a B. So the MFP is 6.2. And when you take in the federal portion, which is 1.8, which is not included in the MFP, and the additional resources of local, which total 6.7, that is $13 billion for public education in Louisiana. There is no way we can't find a permanent pay raise in those dollars. Now, there's 4 levels of funding for the MFP. I want to bring one level, level 1, to your attention to understand the weights and measures that go into that. Low income and English learners. That's weighted with a 22% increase. Career and technical education, 6%. Special education, 150%. Gifted and talented, 20%. Gifted and talented is 60%, and economy of scale is 0 to 20%. Now, if we were just paying attention to what the governor discussed about the economic development boom in Louisiana, the majority of those jobs are not 4-year degree jobs. They are career and technical. Yet we only boost public education 6% for providing those services. That needs to change in Louisiana. Our base rate is $4,000, $4,015 for students. When you adjust that with the Department of Treasury has calculated for us, and you include the money, the $2,200, you're up to $16,000 now per student. The members of this committee was going to be as diverse as the legislature. I will appoint a member. The president will appoint. The speaker will appoint someone. The president, the Senate president of, finance chair will be on it. Appropriations chair or the designee. Senate education chair, House education chair or their designee. The superintendent will be on it, their designee. President of Bessie, executive director of the School Board Association, executive director of the Superintendent Association. We're also going to include the chair of the House and Senate, both Republican and Democratic Party, to make sure we have a 15-member panel that is as reflective as we can of the state's needs. The members will be report to me. We'll have to have those names by July 1st, and the goal is for the task force to complete their task by December 31st. Now, we're also going to create a similar task force for higher education, because that formula, as you know, has created a lot of problems this year, the new formula that has come out. That task force is going to be led by Senator Reese. I've asked him to stay on in the Senate. I know he has a new role as President McNeese. Will adjust his Senate responsibilities, but I'm going to ask him to stay on and guide that through the process so we can adjust that formula as well to make sure that both of these formulas really meet the needs of Louisiana, which right now I don't think they do. So thank you all for your time.
Let me close with this. For too many years, Louisiana's teachers and support workers have been told next year. Next year, we'll find the money. Next year, we'll fix the formula. Next year, we'll finally give you the permanent pay raise you deserve. Next year, in my opinion, is no longer acceptable. I've said from day one that my commitment is simple and unwavering. I want to deliver a permanent, predictable pay raise for our in-classroom teachers and the support staff without raising taxes. Temporary stipends are not a strategy. They don't provide stability, and they vanish the moment the legislature cannot renew them. Allah, we're here today. Our teachers deserve better than that. And that's why I'm taking these steps. These are steps. Let me back up. That's not why I'm taking it. That's why we are taking these steps. They're steps that are grounded in facts, in discipline, and responsibility. For the first time ever, we're launching a bipartisan MFP pay raise task force. That's what the Senate president just explained to you all, with all of the key stakeholders at the table. Their job is clear: to deliver a permanent funding solution inside the MFP by January 1 or December 31st of this year, so that the upcoming school year is the last year. And this upcoming school year is the last year that teachers will have to wonder whether they're going to get their pay raise or not. And it's not even been a pay raise. It's a stipend that they've been getting at the end of the year, like a bonus. The task force, as he said, is going to review the MFP from top to bottom. And I believe I would encourage him that nothing is off limits. Nothing should be assumed, and nothing should be protected from scrutiny. When raises belong, whether raises belong in the base, the weights, and reoccurring allocation, or rebuild the structure entirely, their charge is design a formula that is durable, transparent, and sustainable. Because permanent pay raises must be built into the formula. They should not be Velcroed into the budget. I want the people of Louisiana to know that this legislature and I are not going to kick the can down the road anymore. It's been too frustrating. The era of patchwork stipends and year-to-year uncertainty is over. That's what we've been trying to do for 3 years. It's why we've had a standstill budget 3 years in a row. It's why we asked our civil servants, our state employees, my cabinet members to go through the budget, to scrub their budget, to find efficiencies. Why? Because we knew there'd be times when you might have to tighten the belt. And so today we're choosing a responsible path, a structural path, because our teachers deserve permanency, not promise. So to all the teachers and support staff out there who work across the state, I want you to know that your stability matters to us. And we're going to go back. We've gone back to the table again. This is the third time that we've gone to the table fighting to make sure that you get that permanent pay raise. With that, I will take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
I know that that's what we start for, but do you have any idea for the there is, too much spending?
Wait, I miss it. You want to reformat the question?
I know the task.
Kind of like direct, kind of like let's be direct. Are you saying, do I believe that there's a bunch of fluff in the budget?
I know the task force has not done its work, but do you personally have some areas where you think it's bloated? There's been unnecessary and too much spending.
No, I don't know. I don't know. No one has forced the school boards to go through their budget. No one has done that. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they find out. Yes.
Governor, could you just go over the broad strokes of the plan to get the money this year by adjusting some of the funds that you can get on quick.
Unfortunately, I can't do that because I don't have the budget yet. My hope is that once the budget reaches my desk and I have an opportunity to see what they pass and find ways to work with the legislature, I'm hoping very quickly we'll hold another press conference like that, and I'll go through exactly what our plan is.
Will the money, in basic terms, come from what has been appropriated or will be appropriated from the MFP?
I don't know. I as soon as I get the budget, as soon as the legislature sends me the budget, we're going to comb through the budget, and we are going to find a way to give them a permanent pay rate. I mean, to give them the stipend for this year. The good news is we've got plenty of time, right? This stipend is not paid out until December. So I could get the budget. We might be able to fix it in 2-3 days. We might be able to see some things. Maybe it takes us longer. I don't know. I'm just standing here in front of those teachers and saying I'm committed to try to finding it with the legislature. I can't do it on my own. But I think with them and the president and the speaker are both committed to it as well. So we're going to try to use every tool in the toolbox to try to find that money. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, the goal of the K-12 task force is to bring this money for a permanent teacher pay raise. What is the goal of the higher education task force?
Oh,
they adjusted the higher education formula this past year, and there was a lot of unhappy universities. And as I was going through looking at the MFP, we looked at it and said, okay, when's the last time we've adjusted the formula used for higher education? And we haven't done it in a while. I want to get some legislators involved in it to make sure our universities are heading in the right direction. So that's the purpose of it, is the purpose of both of these programs is not to necessarily cut the funding to these, to higher ed or through K through 12. It's to figure out the money that we have. I mean, that's an enormous amount. We're talking about billions is going in the right places. And as times have changed, we need to make sure that the money is following the times. And I think we definitely need to find a spot for higher education to modernize their systems. And for K through 12, the focus is to make sure the customer, who is the student, is getting the sources they need. And, you know, the salesperson is the teacher. That's the first person that touches that customer. We want to make sure that the teachers is well taken care of in perpetuity, not this piecemeal every session, have them come beg for a pay raise. That's disrespectful to them.
And let me just say, I applaud the Senate president for tackling that. 70% of the jobs we're creating right now don't even require a 4-year college education. And we're still stuck in an archaic educational structure that hasn't been changed in a long time. The MFP hasn't been touched since the early 90s, just right after I got out of high school. Yeah.
It sounds like the idea is to find money in the MFP that would pay at least temporarily for the stipends and then maybe the raises. But I think you hear from schools that their expenses are going up. The base amount per pupil hasn't increased since 2019. I believe the 4,000 amount, the base level amount. And so I'm wondering why go into the public school funding when, for example, there's also the revenue stabilization fund, there's other pots of money.
I'm so glad. See this thing right here? It's been vexing me for 3 years. Okay? The revenue stabilization prohibits us from using it. Okay, let me repeat this again, Julia. The Revenue Stabilization Fund does not allow us to take out of it to give teachers a pay raise. That is false. That is misinformation. You need to read the Constitution. That's the problem. I'll tell you something else that's amazing. Today, we recalculated the ITEP programs, where 20% of before corporations were paying 0. Today, they're paying 20%. There is money flowing into those school boards. There is tax revenue flowing. I talked to sheriffs. Their tax revenues are flowing in many. Richland Parish, they actually could probably build a whole new school, right? Okay, the economic opportunity that we have unleashed is going to provide these school boards and is already providing these school boards with revenue. How they choose to spend it is what we're questioning. Okay, we got grade A football fields, okay, and we're rotting in the classroom. I mean, like, where's the priority? That's a decision that school boards have to make. So the question is, let's go see their revenue. Go look at where their revenue is going up. Yep.
So the Constitution says that Bessie has the power to develop those EMFP. Will the task force only be making a recommendation?
Yeah, that's exactly the whole idea is that the legislature. So you're right, and I think that's important because it's extremely confusing. I didn't know how confusing it was until the Senate president. I sat down. I was like, this is crazy, right? So what happens is only Bessie can adjust the formula, and then they send that adjustment to the legislature. The legislature can either vote it up or down, or they can make a recommendation, but they can't amend it. And so the idea is to allow this task force to do the work, to do in-depth work, to look through the MFP formula and say, is the formula meeting the needs of education today? And if not, then, which we know it's not, then how do we change it? And this is the recommendation we would make to Bessie, and hopefully Bessie will adopt it. That's fair.
Part of the folks in the conference today is teacher pay raise. A large part of the amendment also including paying down a lot of debt. With the current formulas factor in that haven't paid down that debt?
Well, no, the school board, look, that's what is so frustrating. I guess people in Louisiana like to pay interest instead of teachers. I don't know. Like, if this was a stability of the retirement system, those payments are going, those school boards, it's like a note. You know, in the old days, you know, I'm an old school guy. You'd buy a car, whatever, and the bank would give you a little coupon book, you know, and you'd pay, you'd rip it off. And that's what's going on every month. Those school boards have that coupon book. We were trying to dispose of a big portion of it. And so instead of writing the check to the bank, they would write the check to the teachers Now, why teachers would oppose that, I don't know. It's frustrating, but it's where we are. It's okay. We are committed. As you can see, we're not just like waving it off.
Thank you for having this press conference.
You're so welcome.
I think I hear you loud and clear. You're saying teachers deserve this money. They deserve to be paid more, and we need to fix that. I feel like that's pretty different from what I heard from legislators last week, which was that they didn't feel like there was a way to do this. I'm sorry to call out the Senate president, but ahead of the constitutional amendment, he said, if voters don't vote for us, why would we do it? Because voters have decided they don't want this. And we also heard last week that there was going to be some legal concern about doing another stipend because it would be considered recurring money, and we couldn't draw down from the Revenue Stabilization Fund because it would be a recurring expense. So how are we doing this now? Like, how are we getting around that recurring situation, and what has changed since Thursday with the legislators that now we're willing to kind of move mountains to make this happen?
Well, look, I think that I can't speak for the Senate president. I'm gonna tell you this. I think that he expressed frustration in that comment. Is really and truly. He's never told me, "Hey, I don't want to give teachers." Yeah, you.
No, so the frustrating part is that we were trying to pass something, as the governor said, to give the teachers a pay raise. And the idea of the limited resources we had, having a deficit for this year and a deficit for next year, to coming up with reoccurring money to cover the pay raise, because we can't dip into revenue stabilization. We weren't going to use one-time money for a reoccurring expense. We don't want to do that. So that's why the legislature, the speaker, and the governor are committed to find reoccurring money that we will use for the stipend. That covers us for the rules that the House has on using one-time money for a recurring expense, which we appreciate. I was frustrated. I think a lot of members were frustrated because we had a way to give teachers a pay raise, and that didn't work. The public wasn't comfortable with it, for wherever it might be. I think a lot of us have taken to the fact that they want to give teachers a pay raise. They just didn't want to do it that way. They didn't want to do it by paying off debt. So our job was to come up with something different, something else that worked. I think the governor has a general outline of a plan he would like to use. Obviously, he needs to get the budget before him. So if the legislature comes on board, I think we'll be able to give teachers the stipend that they need, not using one-time money, using reoccurring money for it. So hopefully next year, as we mold this new formula, we'll be able to take that chunk of money with a little bit more and cover everybody's expenses.
Let me just add to that. Like, Cameron and I and Phillip spent all weekend, okay, all Memorial weekend, working through this. I mean, that's the level of commitment that we have. The only time I took a break was to go plant flags for those that were falling. Like, we worked all weekend to do this. And here's the other thing too. Honestly, and I'll give the credit to the Senate president. He deserved it. He came up with this idea. He's like, I think we can work through the current funding formula. I was excited. You know why we can't do it sooner? Because of this nice book right here, the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't allow us to instruct Bessie or to the task force can't move any faster and give Bessie some ideas to restructure the formula, because even if they did it by August, the Constitution won't allow us to change that formula until next session. Again, it's important for the people of Louisiana to understand how obstructive this document is sometimes. When we're trying to give people the relief they need, we have a lot of times this Constitution has tied our hands. Yes. Let's see. Hold on. Go ahead, ma'am.
Are other races on hold until the task force is?
Or what?
Are other races on hold?
No. Look. Let me tell you. I'm going to tell you, the legislature, when we worked all weekend, they reminded me, okay, that our state employees have worked tirelessly over the last 3 years to try to trim their budgets. They've found efficiencies to ensure that if we had tough times, we wouldn't have to dip into their budgets. They deserve that pay raise. They've run through their Doge operations. And so when the legislature, when Kevin's like, listen, this is a plan, like this is literally doable. And I believe him. And so with that, I said, okay, I'm fine. If that's what we want to do, I'm fine with that as well. So I can't speak for the legislature. They got to vote on the budget, but I'm fine if they make those pay raises for our civil servants in there. I think they deserve it, quite frankly. I know that some people are critical about the Department of Corrections. I think I want to answer that. I know that but hold on. I want you to know something, okay? That nobody has criticized. For 8 years, John Bell was here, but all kind of gimmicks. There was 50 million every year in the supplemental bill to pay for the Department of Corrections, not additions. It's just like, just never noticed it. And so we came by and we said, you know what? That's a gimmick. Okay. Our Secretary of Corrections actually said, you know what? I think we could actually save money if we just go ahead and be honest and bake it into the budget, because we can't predict those medical expenses on those prisons. I know one thing. Our streets are safer today. I don't know what y'all want to cut Department of Corrections, and then kids came and walked to school. There was a time when that occurred. And so again, we have painstakingly worked to balance the fiscal affairs of the state. It's like people don't recall all of the fights that happened in this building when we had a budget shortfall. It's healthcare, education, healthcare. We've been able to avoid that. The only thing we haven't been able to do is give teachers a permanent pay raise. One last question. Who didn't know? Well, I'll get with you and then I'll get, go ahead. Go ahead.
But Governor, you didn't give the people of Louisiana a heads up before you went to Greenland or even talked about the trip. Don't the people you work for deserve more information from you on this?
I don't know, like what you mean, like that we didn't.
Like when you're returning.
Oh, when I'm returning. Oh, yeah, I'm back. I'm back. I mean, I don't know. Like, you wanted to come with me? We're gonna put you on the press pool. It was interesting. Everybody else was there. I don't know. Everybody else knew I was going. I don't know why you didn't. Go ahead.
Do you have a question about why Secretary Westcott?
Hold on a second.
The failure of these amendments, the second round of these amendments, give you pause about certain changes to the Constitution in the future?
It does. It really does. I mean, it does. It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, again, that's probably a better question for legislators as well, because I can recommend changes to the Constitution and and they have to pass it. But it's a great and very fair question. I don't. Yeah, I mean, again, it's extremely frustrating because it's hard to understand why we wouldn't want to pay down debt. Why would we want to pay interest? I think that on one side of the political spectrum, there are those that are frustrated with public education in this state. I do that. It's unfortunate that I think they're taking it out on the teachers, unfairly. I share their frustration. I want you to know. Okay, it's why you're seeing things like vouchers and scholarship, ESA scholarship, educational scholarships in other states. Why you see more students leaving the public school system, going to homeschooling. So there's frustration on the right and on the left. I don't know. I really don't know. They just mad. They look at it. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. All right. Thank y'all.